Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Attack of the Sands webinar. In this webinar, you'll get some industry insight into the state of IT infrastructure management and the storage market. And additionally, you'll learn a little bit about how BMC TrueSight can help you get a unified and actionable view of disparate storage resources. We encourage everybody to interact with us, so please submit your questions in the Q&A window and we'll answer them at the close of the presentation. If we are unable to get to your question in this presentation, we'll be following up via email. So with that bit of housekeeping out of the way, it is my pleasure to introduce our riveting speakers for today. We have Scott Sinclair, and Scott is joining us from Enterprise Strategy Group, maybe better known as ESG. Scott is a senior analyst covering storage and data protection, and he'll be giving us the industry update. We also have with us Brendan Murray. Brendan is a principal software consultant here at BMC Software, and Brendan specializes in the TrueSight portfolio, and he'll be presenting how TrueSight can help you get your storage under control. So at this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Scott Sinclair. Scott, take it away, sir.
Thank you, Kristen. So let's get this started with some industry update. What we're going to talk about a little bit before we get to the meat of the program that I think Brendan is going to deliver is to provide a quick overview of what's happening in the IT industry. Now, most of you know you're living it day to day, but what I'd like to do is introduce myself, my company, ESG, and provide some insight into what a lot of your contemporaries are experiencing right now. And first, before we begin, I'd like to talk a little bit about ESG. So, as Kristen mentioned, ESG stands for Enterprise Strategy Group. We are an IT analyst firm covering a wide variety of technology segments, including both storage and management. And we have a heavy focus on both research and strategy. So we work with a lot of the IT vendors in the space, helping them build out product strategies, helping them better interact with folks like yourself. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our research that we've been conducting. And what you'll see in the slides is data points from two specific research studies that we conducted very recently. The first of which is what we call our IT spending intention study. Now, this study is primarily focused on the IT executive team. What are the key challenges and technology trends that we're seeing in that space? The second study that I'm going to reference some data points from is what we call our storage industry trends. Now, this study was specifically focused on a different audience. This one was targeted at storage architects, storage administrators. So what you'll see is essentially two different viewpoints, two different audiences, but a consistency in the challenges that IT environments are experiencing today. Now let's start with the elephant in the room. Now, most people have seen slides that have indicated this, and this challenge continues to be talked about, but it will continue to be talked about until we solve it, is the perpetual challenge of data growth. Now, what we're seeing here, and I'm highlighting, is from two different studies when we've asked organizations, what are your top challenges? What we're seeing from the storage group on the left is the rapid rate of data growth continues to be the number one challenge that organizations are facing. And while I listed out the top three here, with number two being data protection and number three being hardware costs, but if you looked at the overall list of the top 10, every single one of those issues are exacerbated by data growth. We see things like data protection becomes more of a challenge as more data is generated and stored. Hardware costs continue to go up. We have other things such as management costs, which we'll talk a little bit later. All of these elements continue to be exacerbated by the challenge of data growth. And data growth has become such an issue that it's not just being seen at the storage level, it's being seen at the IT executive level. And so we have data growth is number three on the overall list. Now, with everything else going on in the industry, cybersecurity is definitely going to be one. But what we're seeing is data growth, like I said, part of the top three. Now, the other key thing to bring up here is data growth continues to be an issue, and throughout all of our research just is this perpetual challenge despite a number of storage innovations to solve this problem. We've seen large capacity drives, we've seen scale-out storage systems, but at the end of the day, managing your data growth continues to persist. And part of this is what we're seeing is it's not getting any easier, or the IT leaders are not getting a lot of help, as budgets are not keeping pace. Now, part of our study, we ask organizations about their budget and their data growth. 63% of organizations are saying that their data is growing at a rate of 20% a year or more annually, while at the same time, IT budgets on average, when we ask organizations, what does your IT budget look like year over year, are growing at about 3 to 4%. So this delta presents the fundamental challenge that we're seeing. Now, as we go through all of our research, another key thing that pops out is where organizations feel the most pain, or where are we looking for relief for this data growth going out of control, but at the same time, budget's not keeping pace. And we see over and over this theme of help me with operational expenses. Capital expenses, I understand, yes, we need relief there, but at the end of the day, in a number of our focused research efforts, we continue to see operational expenses jump up to the top as a key issue. Now, why is that? Well, when we look at overall IT budgets, staffing continues to be the largest percent of budget share. Now, when we ask organizations about this challenge, the challenge isn't the fact that they want to reduce staff. The challenge is, as demands continue to grow in the IT organization, we need the ability to do more. We need the ability for one individual, one administrator, one architect to be more, to be utilized, to be more efficient than ever before. And that brings us to the challenge of management. But at the same time, and this is something else that's key, is if you look at the overall storage IT trends, it's something that actually looks like the managing infrastructure is going to become more complicated in the near term before it starts getting better. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, as all of this, as data continues to grow, as infrastructure becomes more difficult to manage, what we're seeing is this rise of this multi-dimensional data center. Data centers are no longer defined by, I have my single SAN system, or I have a single, or all my solutions come from one vendor anymore. What we're seeing is this rise of multiple deployments. Now, here I've identified some key research trends that we're seeing. Number one is we've seen this rise of flash storage, with 50% already deployed and another 20% expecting to deploy in the next year from our research. We see a commitment to software-defined storage as a long-term strategy with 68%. And at the same time, we also see this increase in cloud spending. Now, while each one of these individual technologies touts this future of the world being easier and solving challenges, they introduce their own complexities. Flash storage, for example. While the performance helps solve a number of application performance issues and provides benefits, at the same time, we've seen that by removing the bottleneck from the storage system, by the storage platters, and moving it to somewhere else in the infrastructure, it's that in many cases, or in some cases, deploying flash storage adds an architectural challenge, as organizations now need to better understand how their overall environment is managed in order to optimize it. With software-defined storage, the message is often about simplicity, but at the same time, what we're seeing is introducing new challenges of how hardware is introduced and how it's managed, and potentially the requirement to qualify software and hardware separately. With cloud, similar. We see similar issues where organizations say, we'll move it to the cloud and it will be simpler. Well, what we see is the emergence of now an off-premises silo of data storage that now has to be managed. So while each one of these technologies in a vacuum presents an opportunity to make things easier, combined, what they've done is they've provided value, but they've made managing the resulting infrastructure that much more complex. Now, how are these challenges manifesting themselves? Well, when we look at our research and we talk to IT leaders, we see throughout every single study this demand for better manageability. We see issues with staffing requirements. IT organizations, we talked about that staff on an earlier slide, of staffing being the largest portion of budget. But at the same time, here we have 1 in 4 IT leaders we talk to saying they can't find enough qualified storage professionals. We see device management, where growing with more and more systems, more disparate systems, more heterogeneous environments, device management becoming a challenge. At the same time, we see this idea of all data and all applications are not created equal. So where is my data located? Am I using that to the most efficient and optimal means necessary? And at the same time, how is that being reported? So we continue to see these challenges in data management, in device management, and the inability to find enough qualified people to keep up with the needs of this digital transformation of growing business needs for how they interact with data. And so the answer, at the end of the day, is IT organizations need a better solution to managing their infrastructure. And not just managing, I'm not talking about making things simpler, making things, where you go from 5 clicks to 3 clicks in a single user interface. Talking about making a more efficient deployment of a heterogeneous real-world data center environment. And on one hand, that talks about end-to-end visibility. And on this slide, I've included a quote from our founder, Steve Duplessis, from one of his recent articles. And he talks about this desire to manage a system and not individual boxes. Every system that comes out, or all these heterogeneous storage arrays that I've seen released, all tout simplicity. I'm still waiting for someone to release a box to say it's hard to use. But at the end of the day, managing an individual box isn't the issue. What's challenging is managing the dozens to hundreds of boxes that IT organizations deploy to leverage all these different disparate technologies that we talked about, flash, software-defined, and cloud, to design an optimal IT infrastructure. And that's what managing the system is about. And that's why you need different tools, or a different tool that provides an overarching view of heterogeneous infrastructure elements. And that brings me to my last slide before I transition over to Brendan. If you think about how to get there, how do we get from where we're at today, where each storage vendor talks about how they have a simple user interface, but that interface can only manage one element. And we end up with this result as we integrate new technologies into our IT infrastructure. We end up with dozens of different element managers, each one with its own nuances. Well, to me, and this is something that I believe is inherent and goes to that message of, or critical, and it goes to that concept that everyone touts simplicity. Efficiency is more important, or efficiency is the new simplicity. So what do I mean by that? Simplicity only provides business value if it reduces the number of cycles that a project takes, or it inherently improves time to value. So when you're looking at tools or solutions that help deliver, that want to provide simplicity, that make your life easier, the thing to look for is capabilities that reduce the number of steps that it takes to either execute a project or it takes to achieve business value. And so these are, what I've done here is, through our research, looked at kind of 4 aspects to look for. The first is the focus on workloads rather than devices. Device management tends to be very focused on hardware and infrastructure. People that build hardware arrays are very proud of them, and they like to build management that highlights all the little nuances of the system. When at the end of the day, the focus should be on the workload. The focus should be on the application and automating the infrastructure to that application. In that same vein, we get to the second bullet, which is about reducing the number of elements that are required to manage. What you care about, or what I see when I talk to IT leaders and storage leaders, is the desire to manage workloads and have the infrastructure automate decisions to optimize around what the workload needs. And that requires reducing the number of elements that you need to manage. And third, what that gets us to is the intelligence to integrate these diverse resource tiers. So as your IT environment looks to integrate off-premises cloud solutions, as you look to leverage more flash technologies, as you look to leverage heterogeneous arrays from other vendors, the ability to integrate those into your management paradigm without having to learn a whole new interface, without having to rewrite the book, that saves time and delivers time to value. And last is, and this is something that I continually believe is critical, is the fact that application environments are never stagnant. Any solution that allows you to better manage your workload environment, that better allows you to manage your data center, has to have intelligence and analytics to understand how those workload demands are evolving over time in order to adjust on the fly, and allow your business to adjust to those needs and better optimize the resources to handle them. So as I transition over to Brandon to kind of walk you through the capabilities, these are some things I want you to think about that we continue to see through our research that help fuel this demand for better manageability. And with that, let me turn it over to Brandon.
All right, thank you, Scott. Let's move to the next slide. My name is Brendan Murray. As the slide says, I'm a principal software consultant with BMC Software, and I focus on the performance and analytics product lines, which is the product line that our TrueSight solution falls within. So for the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about TrueSight, which is a product family that includes a number of solutions for different parts of operations and monitoring and analytics. And we're going to focus on the solutions on the left-hand side of this diagram, the TrueSight Operations and TrueSight Capacity. TrueSight Operations is focused on monitoring, event management, and real-time analytics to help you be more intelligent about the way you monitor your environment, including storage. And TrueSight Capacity is our on-premises solution for doing capacity optimization. The full name of the product is TrueSight Capacity Optimization. And on the right-hand side, just mentioning in passing, we have our cloud-based solutions, TrueSight Pulse, which is our monitoring solution focused for the DevOps audience, and TrueSight Intelligence, which is our cloud-based analytics, operational analytics platform. One thing I want to mention right off the top is that in addition to the solutions that are actually hosted in the cloud, both TrueSight Operations and TrueSight Capacity are enabled for data collection from your cloud environment. So while they are hosted in your data center, you can manage your public and private cloud environments from both TrueSight Operations and TrueSight Capacity. So we're going to start with capacity management and how TrueSight Capacity Optimization can help you with managing a multi-vendor SAN environment. And that's really a key point that I want to highlight right off the top, is that where we really can add value is in a multi-vendor environment where most data centers have more than one storage platform. And as Scott mentioned, everybody's using point solutions, element managers, which lead to the storage people all focusing on their particular platform and not necessarily having a bigger picture. And those tools are definitely are valuable, but they tend to lead towards a siloed approach to managing. Our approach really is to give you a way to manage the capacity of all of your storage infrastructure from one place and help you see how that capacity relates to the capacity of all of the other layers of your application stack. So that's the private cloud, that's your hypervisors, the network, servers, even physical elements in the data center, heating and cooling, all of those elements can actually feed data into TrueSight capacity optimization. It is not just a solution that is focused solely on storage, but it's definitely a powerful, storage is a powerful part of our story. The whole point of managing storage capacity is to match demand and supply. So obviously you don't want to run out of storage, but by the same token, you don't want to be buying more storage than you need. And typically that's what people are doing because of the rapid rate of data growth that Scott alluded to in his part of the presentation. It's always the safer option to buy more storage because it's hard to manage the space that you've got, what with thin provisioning and multiple platforms. It's tough to get a really holistic view of how you're doing in terms of storage consumption. So the safest option is always just to overbuy and to have more storage than you actually are using. The goal of TrueSight capacity optimization really is to help you solve that problem, to improve your return on investment in storage by getting the most out of the storage that you've got today and helping you avoid buying more storage until it's absolutely necessary. One of the ways that we do that is we actually can give your users and the business an awareness of which business units, which individual parts of the organization are consuming storage through chargeback and showback. So what TrueSight capacity optimization is giving you is really a proactive way of collecting storage data into a capacity analysis engine and then generating reports to tell you how your storage is being utilized. The solution is highly scalable, so we have some very large customers who are feeding data from tens of thousands of servers as well as their storage devices into TrueSight capacity optimization. And the way we work is we integrate with your existing management tools. So typically they are, depending on the storage platform, we are leveraging the existing management interfaces or the existing management APIs in order to get data out of the particular storage technology into TrueSight capacity optimization. All right, so here's an example of the kinds of analysis that you can do with TrueSight capacity optimization for storage. So a big part of capacity optimization, capacity management is forecasting, understanding when your existing storage will saturate. And that saturation could be in terms of available space, but it could also be in terms of bandwidth on your fabric. It could also be just IOPS. If you're running out of throughput in the storage, you're going to notice performance problems. These things are all finite resources, and any one of them can saturate depending on the pattern of application activity. So we provide a number of different algorithms. I think there are somewhere around 15 different out-of-the-box forecasting algorithms that allow you to predict how your storage is going to perform in the future and when you are going to hit that wall that's going to force you to purchase additional storage. The whole point is to optimize costs so that you're not buying storage until you absolutely have to. One of the things that TrueSight capacity optimization is designed to do is essentially industrialize the capacity management process. So once you've created your forecasting model, you can schedule it to run in an automated fashion so that you are constantly running that forecast, and it will just run in the background. And then when you actually hit a threshold, that is when you are predicted to run out of storage in 30 days or 60 days, depending on how you set up your forecast, then you'll just receive a report emailed to your inbox, and you can see that you can look at the storage that is approaching saturation. So again, the goal is to give you weeks or even months of advance notice before that happens. Our whole goal really for capacity optimization is for you to buy only the storage you need when you need it. And so a key part of that is understanding how much headroom you've got in the existing storage that you're running with today, and when you're going to run out of that headroom. A major part of the solution is our ability to show you all of your storage platforms in a single view. I don't know, the print's kind of small on that screenshot, but we've got that storage systems dashboard is one of the standard out-of-the-box dashboards that allows you to look at overall utilization at the system level, at the pool level, at the individual volume level, as well as giving you an ability to analyze which hosts are, excuse me, which hosts are attached to which storage systems and which volumes are attached to which hosts. So this is an out-of-the-box view. It's part of the standard solution. It presents most of the key storage KPIs that you are tracking on a day-to-day basis. So it's available space, subscribed space, consumed space, the I/O facet of storage, IOPS, as well as your port utilization, controller activity, basically all of the key performance indicators that tell you how your storage is being utilized. We provide you as well a set of out-of-the-box reports that allow you to generate things like an overview of your storage system utilization, storage pools overview, and how your storage is allocated in terms of how it's allocated to hosts, as well as getting a sense of is the storage that's out there actually being used, or is it my provisioning storage that's just sitting there idle? Again, the goal is to ensure that you have a good picture on a day-to-day basis of whether you've got enough capacity available for future demand, and to avoid that falling into that trap of just buying more storage because you think you have a sort of a general feel that you're due to buy more storage without actually having a fact-based way of making that decision. Right. So, and making that decision is really the whole point of TrueSight capacity optimization. So, we allow you to, in the dashboards, you can locate the capacity that's available, so you can understand what has been consumed, what is the remaining available storage, as well as at the pool level. This particular dashboard is focused on pools. We'll provide you with a couple of risk indicators. So whether or not you're running into whether you're approaching saturation on any of those storage pools will show up in a saturation risk indicator. We're also helping you track the oversubscription and thin provisioning of your pools. So for thin provision pools, we will give you an oversubscription risk indicator, basically telling you that you are approaching the point at which you are not going to be able to respond to requests for additional space in thin provision pools. Right, and we're also, as I mentioned earlier, we're able to map the hosts, the volumes to hosts, as well, and report on multiple storage pools that are organized in tiers. So we can, in this case, in this example, you're seeing a number of different storage tiers that we're reporting on the subscribed and consumed capacity in, again, one of our standard out-of-the-box dashboards. Right. A major capability of TrueSight capacity optimization is accounting or chargeback and showback. And this is a challenge for a lot of organizations, and it's definitely a challenging problem. You need to understand, who is using your storage. So we tackle this problem from a number of perspectives. First of all, we give you the ability to map volumes to hosts. And if you also, and I'll mention this also in the monitoring section of my presentation, if you are using our BMC Discovery solution, it can help you actually map volumes all the way to data stores and VMs, and this gives you a much better picture of who's actually consuming the storage once you understand basically which volumes are being consumed by which hosts and which VMs, and then ultimately which organizational unit. Once you have completed that mapping, you can then generate chargeback and showback analysis by creating a hierarchy of organizational units and then using any number of different costing models, including fixed cost, allocation-based, and utilization-based cost models, which our chargeback and showback engine supports. I should mention, obviously, that the benefit of that is that if you have organizations that are consuming more than their fair share of storage, then you can draw that to their attention and hopefully rein that in to a degree. All right, so another key benefit of storage of TrueSight capacity optimization is to help you understand where you've got waste in the environment. So again, the goal being to avoid buying storage until you absolutely need it. And so we give you a number of ways of identifying, first of all, what is actually being used. So in this case, we've got somewhere around 40% of LUNs that have had next to no activity over the last X number of days, the default value being 30 days. Looks like something went slightly wrong with my slide here, but this darker blue area is the actual amount of storage, the storage that's actually being used, actively used by hosts. And then we have about 10% of our disks are unused, and somewhere around 10% of our LUNs are not even mapped to hosts. So we've got a significant amount of storage that's sitting there underutilized, and we can reclaim that unused capacity and make it available to basically applications and hosts that can use that capacity more efficiently than it's being used today. So that sums up TrueSight capacity optimization, and in terms of how it relates to storage. I should mention that we can collect data from most of the major storage vendors out there. So that's basically Dell, EMC, HP, Hitachi, IBM, and NetApp. And if you have a storage device that is not supported out of the box, the tool is extensible, so we can collect data from just about anything through using a custom connector. So that's TrueSight capacity optimization. Moving on to the real-time management of your storage. This is monitoring, understanding how the storage, what's the health of my storage right now, rather than how efficiently am I using space and when am I going to run out of capacity in my storage. So the solution there is TrueSight operations management. And the whole goal around TrueSight operations management is to monitor your storage in essentially real time at all of the different layers. So again, we're monitoring volumes, we're monitoring the storage pools, we're monitoring the fabric components of your SAN infrastructure, and we're trying to help you detect storage bottlenecks and performance issues in real time and to troubleshoot those issues so that you can get down to a potential root cause. And the big thing really to understand about TrueSight operations management is, again, like TrueSight capacity optimization, we are not just focused on storage. The idea is behind TrueSight operations management is it's monitoring everything, infrastructure as well as applications from the application perspective, and of course storage. And so the goal is to provide you with a holistic view that allows you to understand how does my storage relate to my application performance. If I have an application performance problem, is it possible that it's due to a storage issue? And how do I find that out? How do I troubleshoot that without switching between 3 or 4 different user interfaces trying to arrive at a diagnosis? That's the problem we're trying to solve with TrueSight operations management. So I've kind of stolen my own thunder with this slide. That's really the point of this slide, is we've got all of these different vendors for storage, and they all have their own tools for managing their storage, and those tools definitely have a place. But they are, unfortunately, they're all only showing you a piece of your environment, and they are all focused strictly on storage. And so you're not understanding how the storage relates to the applications that it supports. So the goal for TrueSight operations management, along with our partner Sentry Software that is providing us with the data connectors, is to collect that storage data and make it available in TrueSight operations management in a single place, as well as to leverage all of the analytics that TrueSight operations management delivers. So you can see in this slide, storage is actually just one of the boxes on that slide. We're monitoring big data platforms. We're monitoring traditional application platforms. We're monitoring operating systems, containers, as well as the clouds. We have connectors for the AWS cloud, Azure. So all of this data is ultimately in support of understanding how your applications are working. But in order to do that, we also need to have a picture of what's going on at the infrastructure layer and what's going on at the operating system, what's going on with storage. So we're collecting and processing data and events. And events would be coming from third-party tools that are element managers that have their own alerts and events that they're sending us. So we're able to consume. That's, I guess, a key thing to stress with TrueSight Operations Management is we're collecting and processing both numeric performance data and utilization data and events. We have a very powerful analytics engine that is going to, for the numeric data, we're going to learn for any element or any measure that you've identified as a key performance indicator, we're going to baseline that. So if storage data absolutely falls within that domain, if you identify particular metrics that you want to track and baseline and understand what is the normal behavior of that metric, our analytics engine will help you do that. The whole goal is to be proactive, to understand when things are drifting away from their normal behavior pattern and making operations staff aware of that so that they can do something about it. And the key thing is because we are collecting data from everywhere, including from the application layer, this gives us a really singular insight into the connection between storage and application performance. We can correlate the two and understand when one might be causing a problem with the other. A major part of what TrueSight Operations Management delivers is automated troubleshooting through our probable cause analysis engine. Probable cause analysis applies a number of different statistical techniques to understand when we're looking at performance data from different sources. So we're looking at application response time, for example. How long is a particular transaction taking to complete, as well as what are the current IOPS metrics, what is the current throughput, the bandwidth utilization on my SAN infrastructure. We're seeing all of those metrics at the same time, and if we see them tracking each other, in other words, we see a storage I/O problem starting to track in parallel to an application performance problem, we will find that relationship automatically, whereas it could take an operations team using multiple tools hours in order to connect those dots. Because we are seeing all of the data in a single tool, processing it with a single analytics engine, we can connect those dots automatically. And so the probable cause analysis engine allows you to shave sometimes hours and certainly minutes off the troubleshooting process. So the key thing is that storage performance is a critical component of your overall application performance. And as a problem with the performance of the SAN can absolutely impact the application layer. All right, so how do we do that? I alluded to this earlier. TrueSight Operations Management has this concept of dynamic baselines. Dynamic baselines essentially are statistical modeling, real-time statistical modeling of any metric that you designate as a key performance indicator. So it could be, in storage it could be transfer rates, it could be I/O operations, it could be fiber channel port utilization. We are collecting that data and we are essentially throwing out the top and bottom 10% of each set of measurements, and we're calculating, okay, everything in between that 10th percentile and the 90th percentile, that's my normal range. That's the normal range, and I track 3 different sets of baselines, an hourly, daily, and a weekly baseline. So I understand what is the normal range of behavior for between 10 and 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. If I see that measured value drifting out of that normal range, I can turn it into an alert if it's something that I'm really concerned about. Typically, we're just going to track it as an abnormality. It's interesting to know. We don't need to actually be alarmed about it, but we're going to make a note in our database so that if we do have a problem, when we kick off that probable cause analysis, the fact that we are having abnormal behavior of a key performance indicator is already noted and will show up in our probable cause analysis. Another major benefit of TrueSight operations management is to be able to put your storage monitoring data as well as all of your other monitoring data in the context of the services that you're actually delivering to the business. We do that through service impact models, which map the relationships between your IT infrastructure components. So that's things like servers, network devices, applications, and we map the relationship to the actual business services and applications that run underneath those. A key component in order to automate this process is our BMC discovery solution. So in order to truly take advantage of this capability, the storage component discovery really depends on that BMC discovery engine being able to map out the relationships between all of the different storage components and connect those to the virtual infrastructure that is using the storage, so VMs and hosts, and ultimately map it all the way up to the service level. Once you've done that, you then have the ability to connect storage issues to the overall impact on the business service. So if you've got a problem at the storage level, it may or may not actually impact service depending on the amount of redundancy in your application architecture. That service impact model will help you understand that and will help you prioritize any alerts related to storage issues according to whether or not they actually have an impact on the delivery of service to the end user. It's a very powerful capability. The key enabler of that is our BMC discovery solution, which is integrated with TrueSight operations management via the CMDB. All right, and then finally, as I alluded to earlier, one of the major values that we bring with TrueSight operations management and TrueSight capacity is our ability to bring all of your different storage vendor data together into a single UI, a single dashboard. So this is an example of a custom dashboard that was built in TrueSight operations management. It's very easy to build these dashboards. These do not require administrative level skills. These are user-defined dashboards. You just pick from a gallery of widgets for different types of data analysis, embed them in a dashboard, and you're good to go. So you can combine metrics from all of the different storage vendor platforms that you're monitoring with TrueSight operations management. And this allows you to, of course, include any storage KPI in your application and service health views. All right, so wrapping things up, we've talked about storage capacity, TrueSight capacity optimization for helping you manage your storage capacity in a vendor agnostic way, and we've talked about TrueSight operations management for helping you monitor your storage, again, across all of the different vendors, the storage vendors that you're using, to unify that picture and to correlate your storage data with all of the other monitoring and event data that you're collecting from the application layer and from your server infrastructure. What is the value of this? Well, it's basically to reduce IT costs. Again, as we talked about, especially in the realm of capacity, people are typically buying more storage than they need in order to ensure that they don't run out. And they may not, and typically a lot of organizations are not utilizing the storage that they own today. They're just buying more storage as an insurance policy. So right-sizing the IT infrastructure is critical. Also, of course, you do not want to run the risk of running out of storage, and that's why TrueSite Capacity and TrueSite Operations Management can help you, in the case of capacity, help you forecast when you're going to hit that wall, when you're going to run out of capacity. And in the case of TrueSite Operations Management, will help you understand in real time how close you are to being saturated in terms of, are you having I/O issues on the SAN? Are you having bandwidth utilization issues on the fabric in part of your SAN environment? Ultimately, the goal is to improve quality of service, to avoid capacity issues and the service disruptions that they can cause. And with that, I think I'm pretty much done. So back to you, Kristen. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda and Scott. It was a really great presentation. We do have a number of questions that came in through the Q&A, so let's go ahead and dig into those. The first question is actually about the storage pools screenshot on slide 17, and they are asking if this capability is part of TrueSite Capacity Optimization out of the box, or is it part of the Sentry solution?
I'm just trying to find slide 17. Which one? So what is? Can you give me the title of the slide? That is it in the question?
Let's see. It was. I can switch to it for you. It's the storage pool screenshot. I'm pushing to the audience right now.
All right. Yes, it's actually a pretty simple question to answer, and that is that all of our integrations with storage hardware are provided by Sentry. So in this case, you're seeing storage pool data from a variety of different vendors. All of our connectors for all of the different hardware, the storage vendors, Dell, EMC, HP, and Hitachi, those are all provided by Sentry. So it's an out-of-the-box solution, but it does require that you purchase those Sentry connectors.
Great, thanks. Next question is, can you separate saturation risk into two parts, storage and IOPS? Documentation suggests a single risk indicator encompassing both. But aren't there many real-life examples where IOPS may be generating latency on storage systems in no danger of running out of available storage?
I think I might actually bring in Christopher Pugh from Sentry on that one. What I can say before, Christopher, if you want to tackle it, I mean, my understanding is that what we're looking at here is the out-of-the-box dashboards. So if there are types of indicators that you want to focus on that are not available on the out-of-the-box dashboards, then you may want to customize things to a degree. But Chris, if you want to tackle that question.
Generally, out of the box, we would concentrate on raw capacity. I don't think the current saturation metrics that we provide out of the box in the views have IOPS built into it. So we currently only do built-in capacity reporting. So it would have to be a separate report if you wanted to do IOP planning.
All right, thank you.
Next question is, how is the data population for the TrueSite Capacity Optimization dashboard accomplished? Is that through a set of ETL connections to the arrays/storage farms?
Yes, we have ETL connectors that run on a scheduled basis, collecting data from the storage array. And so there's two functions that are going on. There are the data collection, which pulls the data from the storage array into our data warehouse. And then there is, behind those dashboards, there are data marts, which are basically they're pre-populated database queries. So in order to get optimum performance, we run jobs on a scheduled basis, and I believe you can, I think out of the box they typically run once a day, but you can, I think, have them run more frequently. So there's a second job. There's the ETL that is collecting the data and pulling it from the storage array. Then there's a second job that is doing the analysis and populating the data mart behind the dashboard. So the dashboard update is a separate job that runs on a scheduled basis.
All right. Next question is a little bit of a long one. Regarding the slide that said detect performance bottlenecks early, how necessary is TrueSight operations to achieve early detection? In short, can I leverage TrueSight Capacity's resource monitor to detect? And if so, how much later will that be compared to the scenario presented of coupling both TrueSight Capacity and TrueSight operations?
If I understand the question correctly, it's really about I think it's really about the time frame that I guess really it's about how frequently the data is being collected. TrueSight Operations Management is doing some degree of is capable of doing some degree of predictive analysis with its analytics engine. So it does have the concept of a predictive alert, but it's doing that for a very short time horizon, about 3 hours. So we're collecting the data depending on the storage, how the storage platform is set up and how the API is set up on the storage array. We're collecting data, every few minutes, every 5 minutes or so. And so we're able to, predict that we're going to, have a capacity or at least have an available space issue, for example, based on a hard threshold within 2 or 3 hours. That's using the predictive alerting and TrueSight Operations Management. TrueSight Capacity Optimization is really targeted at longer time frames. So we're running forecast analyses that are looking at days and weeks of advance notice. So, and we're typically collecting that data less often. How frequently we're collecting it varies from one storage vendor to the next, but it's usually, it can be on an hourly basis. Typically, it's somewhere around an hourly basis, and so if your goal is to be able to detect problems quickly and essentially in real time, TrueSight Capacity Optimization is not the right solution for that. It's more designed to give you a longer-term picture of where you are in terms of how heavily utilized your storage is and when you're going to run out of available capacity. I hope that answers the question.
Mm-hmm. So next question is, how does the BMC Discovery, previously named ADDM, relate to service impact models? What features does it offer on top of what I can do manually mapping a service model in TrueSight Operations Management?
I might like, we have, again, our partner, Christopher Pugh from Sentry on the line. I might let Chris tackle that one. Chris, if you want to give that one a go.
Well, the real advantage of Discovery is the ability to find the association between individual bits of storage and the virtual machines that are consuming it. Saying that this ESX server is using that storage is easy to do, but not really that useful. What Discovery can do in saying that volume on that storage system is mapped to that partition on that virtual machine. So when you have either an issue on the virtual machine or an issue on the storage, you have a direct connection of who's using what. And that's quite hard to do, but very, very useful.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Does that answer it?
Makes sense to me.
Yes, next question here is from an operations management power user, I believe. They're asking, is the patrol console and event management KM required to configure a Sentry storage KM? Do you use agent thresholds? And if so, can they be fully replaced by server thresholds?
The patrol The Patrol Console, actually, maybe, Chris, I will let you, as far as I'm aware, the Patrol Console is not required to configure the Sentry storage cams, but Chris, maybe I'll let you
No, well, they're fully
that.
CMA compatible as any other BMC KM would be. You know, they're advanced and sometimes fractionally better than the BMC KM. They're fully integrated into all of the new interfaces and threshold management systems.
So if they're fully CMA compatible. So basically, it boils down to no, the Patrol Console is not required, and also you can configure with this CMA policies. You can configure server-side thresholds and agent-side thresholds. So you have your choice of how you want to manage thresholds. Obviously, to leverage the analytics engine's capabilities, the server-side threshold is the way to go because that's where the analytics come into play.
Great. Great. So we're going to take 2 more questions and then wrap up for the day so that we end on time. So the next question here is, are Hitachi HNAS 3090 and HNAS 4060 supported by the Sentry Storage CAM? Chris, I think that one's for you.
Brendan, you want to go first? The HNAS stuff is being added. We've got some templates for Monitoring Studio. We've added some bits to capacity optimization. So I'm not sure exactly how much of it's released, but if it isn't released yet, we have some stuff coming out in the very near future.
Okay. Next question is an easy one, so maybe I'll take an additional question. Is TrueSite Operations Management a separate product from TrueSite Capacity? The answer is yes. So the last question we'll take here is, what EMC management tool is required to collect data from VMAX and VMAX3 and DM4 arrays? How does Sentry collect this data? Is it through capacity optimization?
It's collected through the EMC SMIS provider, otherwise known as ECOM. It's just it's through the SMIS provider ECOM. It's a API part of the EMC management suite. So.
Perfect. All right, well, that's it for questions. Thank you all for joining. It's really been a pleasure. So this concludes today's webinar, and we hope you'll join us again next time. Thanks, guys.